The briefing room smells like stale coffee and cigarette smoke. 23 men sit in folding chairs, their faces lit by the projector beam cutting through the darkness. They are looking at a map of the Solomon Islands. They are looking at a death sentence. Captain Matthias Brennan sits in the back row. His uniform is wrinkled, his tie is loose, his eyes are closed. To the uninformed observer, he appears to be asleep. He is not sleeping. He is calculating the exact angle of attack a Zero fighter would need to exploit the vulnerability in a B-17's nose section. The briefing officer drones on about patrol routes and fuel consumption. Brennan has heard this speech 40 times. He knows every word. He also knows the speech is missing the most important information, the information that gets men killed. A major turns on the lights. The men blink and stretch. The briefing is over. Titsa. They file out, chatting about mail call and the poker game tonight. Brennan remains seated. He stares at the map still projected on the wall. Bougainville, the island that eats airplanes. Captain Brennan? He turns. Colonel Theodore Garrison stands in the doorway. The colonel is 52 years old and looks 60. The Pacific Theater ages men quickly. You slept through another briefing? No, sir. I was listening. Then tell me what the mission objective was. Reconnaissance sweep of Rabaul, departure 800, formation of 6, expected return 1400, projected casualties 2 aircraft, 12 men. The colonel's jaw tightens. I didn't mention casualties. You didn't have to, sir. The math is simple. 6 B-17s flying over the most defended airspace in the Pacific. Rabaul has 35 operational zeros. Standard tactics dictate they hit us from 12 o'clock. Our nose guns can't stop them. 2 planes will go down. 12 men will die.
Dean Garrison steps into the room. He closes the door behind him. You think you're smarter than everyone else, don't you, Captain? No, sir, I just pay attention to how men die. That attitude has gotten you kicked out of 4 squadrons. 5, sir. I was reassigned from the 91st last week. Garrison sits on the edge of the table. He lights a cigarette. The match flare illuminates his face for a moment. He looks tired, bone tired. You were a good pilot once, Brennan.
Top marks in flight school, excellent instincts, but you can't keep your mouth shut. You challenge your superiors, you question orders, you write reports nobody wants to read. I wrote one report, sir, about defensive modifications to increase crew survivability. I read it. So did half the brass at headquarters. You know what they said? Garrison exhales smoke. They said you were an engineer playing pilot. They said you didn't understand the realities of combat aircraft production. They said your ideas would add 800 pounds to the airframe and make the plane too slow for formation flying. Brennan stands. With respect, sir, those brass hats have never watched a Zero come through the nose section. I have. I watched it happen to my wingman over Guadalcanal. I watched the pilot try to aim that pathetic 30 caliber pea shooter while a fighter came at him at 300 miles per hour. The Zero put 20mm shells right through the cockpit. I circled for 20 minutes waiting for parachutes. None came. The room is silent except for the hum of the projector fan. Garrison stubs out his cigarette. You can't save everyone, Captain. I can save more than we're saving now. Not from ground duty, you can't. Garrison walks to the door. He pauses with his hand on the knob. You're grounded, Brennan. Permanent assignment to base operations, no crew, no plane. Maybe pushing papers will teach you to respect the chain of command. Dick, the door closes. Brennan is alone in the briefing room. The projector is still running. The map of Bougainville glows on the wall. He stares at it for a long time. Then he turns off the projector and walks out into the New Guinea heat. The airfield stretches before him. Rows of B-17s sit in their revetments, their aluminum skin baking in the sun. Ground crews swarm over them like ants, checking engines, loading bombs, patching bullet holes. This is the machinery of war. This is where young men climb into flying machines and some of them don't come back. Brennan walks past the hangars, past the operations tent, past the mess hall where men are lining up for lunch. He walks to the edge of the airfield where the jungle begins, where the grass grows tall and the broken things go to die. The boneyard, wrecked aircraft sit in neat rows. Some are burned, some are torn in half, some just have too many holes to count. This is where airplanes go when they can't fly anymore. This is where maintenance crews strip parts to keep other planes flying. This is a graveyard of aluminum and broken dreams. Brennan walks through the wreckage. He knows every plane here. He has studied them. He has measured the entry wounds and calculated the angles. He has done the math that nobody else wants to do. He has learned what kills men. At the far end of the boneyard, hidden in the tall grass, sits a B-17E. The paint is faded. The tires are flat. Oil stains mark the ground beneath the engines. But the airframe is intact. The wings are straight. The tail number is still visible on the fuselage, 41-2666. The men call her Old Devil. Brennan has heard the stories. 3 crews, 3 missions, 27 men, all dead. The plane is cursed, they say. Bad luck from the factory. Some planes are just born to kill. But Brennan doesn't believe in curses. He believes in physics. He believes in angles of attack and muzzle velocity and structural load limits. He believes that bad luck is just another word for bad design. He climbs the ladder into the waste section. The interior smells like oil and old sweat. Sunlight streams through bullet holes in the fuselage. He counts them as he walks forward. 37 holes, most from the front hemisphere, most aimed at the nose section. He reaches the flight deck. The seats are empty. The controls are intact. He sits in the pilot's seat. The leather is cracked and sun-faded. He grips the control yoke. It feels right in his hands. "You got a death wish, Captain?" Brennan turns. A man stands in the waist section. He is 45 years old, built like a fire plug, wearing grease-stained coveralls. Sergeant Eddie Cross, Chief Maintenance Officer, the man who knows every airplane on this base and how it dies. "Just looking, Sergeant." Cross climbs forward. He looks at the empty Bombardier station. "This plane killed 3 crews, you know that?" "I know." "First crew went missing over Rabaul, just never came back. Second crew got jumped by Zeros, shot down in flames. Third crew made it back, but they crashed on landing. 4 men dead. This bird is poison." Brennan runs his hand over the control panel. Or maybe it's just proof. Proof of what? That the B-17 has a fatal flaw. Brennan points forward through the plexiglass nose. "Look at this position. The Bombardier sits in a glass greenhouse. Perfect visibility. Perfect target. And what does he have to defend himself? A single 30 caliber machine gun on a flexible mount. It's like asking him to stop a freight train with a BB gun." Cross leans against the bulkhead. "That's the design. That's what Boeing built." Boeing built it wrong. Every crew that went down in this plane was killed by frontal attacks. The Zeros and the Germans both figured it out. They come straight at you. They know the nose is weak. They aim for the cockpit and the Bombardier, and we can't stop them. So what are you suggesting? We rebuild every B-17 in the Pacific? Brennan stands. He moves through the cockpit, measuring distances with his eyes, calculating weights in his head. "No, just one, this one." Cross laughs. It is not a happy sound. "This one's headed for the scrap heap. Colonel's orders. She's to be stripped for parts by end of week. Then I have until end of week, B." "To do what?" Brennan turns. His eyes are bright, with something Cross hasn't seen in months. "Purpose. To prove that the dead men don't have to stay dead. To prove that we can fix this." Cross is quiet for a long moment. He has seen a lot of young officers with big ideas. Most of them are dead now. But there is something different about Brennan. something that reminds Cross of the old days before the war, when men built things instead of breaking them. "You'll need help," Cross says finally. "I'll need a crew." "Good luck with that. Nobody wants to fly in a cursed plane." Brennan climbs down from the cockpit. He stands in the waist section, looking at the empty gun positions. "Then I'll find the men nobody wants, the misfits, the screw-ups, the ones with nothing to lose." Cross follows him down the ladder. They stand in the tall grass, looking at the battered airplane. "And if I help you, if I let you work on this bird, what makes you think the colonel won't just ground it permanently?" Because he's a good officer. And good officers care about one thing more than regulations. They care about bringing their men home alive. Brennan starts walking back toward the base. I'm going to give him a weapon that does exactly that. The next morning, Brennan starts recruiting. He doesn't look for the best gunners or the most experienced navigators. He looks for the men sitting alone in the mess hall, the men whose names appear on the disciplinary reports, the men who can't get assigned to a regular crew because nobody wants them. He finds Sergeant Dominic Castellano in the gunnery range. Castellano is 26 years old, built like a boxer, with dark eyes that have seen too much. He is firing a .50 caliber machine gun at a target 200 yards away. Every round hits center mass. Brennan watches for 5 minutes. Castellano doesn't miss once. When the gun runs dry, Brennan steps forward. "You're wasting ammunition, Sergeant." Castellano doesn't look at him. He starts reloading. "Target practice isn't a waste, sir." "It is when you're never going to fly again." Now Castellano looks up. His eyes are hard. "What did you say?" "I read your file. You were nose gunner on Old Devil's third mission. The only survivor when she crashed. Medical cleared you to fly 2 months ago, but you've turned down 6 crew assignments. You're done." Castellano's jaw clenches. "I'm not done. I'm just not flying in another death trap." "What if I told you I could fix the death trap?" "I'd say you're crazy, sir." "Maybe." Brennan picks up the .50 caliber ammunition belt. It is heavy. Each round is the size of a finger. "But what if I could give you 2 of these instead of one .30 caliber pea shooter? What if I could give you enough firepower to actually stop a Zero when it comes through the nose?" Castellano stands. He is shorter than Brennan, but broader. He has the kind of shoulders you get from working with your hands your whole life. "You're talking about modifying Old Devil. I'm talking about turning her into something the Japanese have never seen before. She's cursed. Everyone knows it. She's not cursed. She's just poorly armed. But that can change." Brennan holds out his hand. "I need a bombardier who can shoot. More importantly, I need someone who understands what it's like to watch good men die because the engineers back in Seattle made bad choices. Help me fix it." Castellano stares at the offered hand for a long moment. Then he takes it. His grip is strong. "I'll help you build it, Captain, but if it doesn't work, I'm the one who's going to die first. I'm the one sitting in the nose." "It'll work." "You better be right." They shake hands in the gunnery range while the sun beats down and the sound of distant engines fills the air. That night, Brennan and Castellano meet Cross in the boneyard. They carry flashlights and tools. The moon is a sliver. The jungle is loud with insects. Cross has pulled Old Devil out of the tall grass. She sits on the dirt runway at the edge of the boneyard, her landing gear inflated, her engines cold but intact. In the darkness, she looks almost ready to fly. "I got her airworthy," Cross says. "Engines turn over, hydraulics function. She'll fly if you're crazy enough to test her." "We're not flying yet. First we fix her." Brennan climbs into the nose section. He pulls out a notebook filled with sketches and calculations. "Here's what we're going to do. For the next 2 weeks, they work at night. They work in secret. They work with salvaged parts and scrap metal and pure determination. Brennan has calculated everything: weight distribution, ammunition loads, recoil compensation. He has done the math 100 times. He knows exactly where each gun needs to go. They start with the nose. The standard B-17 has a single 30 caliber machine gun on a flexible mount. It weighs 30 pounds and fires a round that can barely penetrate sheet metal. Brennan wants something different. In a wrecked P-38 fighter, sitting 3 rows over, they find what they need. Twin 50 caliber machine guns, heavy weapons designed to destroy other aircraft. Each gun weighs 84 pounds. Each fires a round that can punch through engine blocks. Cross-cuts mounting brackets from scrap steel. Castellano rigs the ammunition feeds. Brennan welds the guns into place, twin barrels pointing forward through the plexiglass nose like the horns of a mechanical bull. But that's not enough. Brennan wants a third gun, a fixed gun, controlled by the pilot. Cross shakes his head. You can't do that. The pilot flies the plane. He doesn't shoot. The pilot needs to shoot. When a Zero comes at us head-on, I want to aim the entire airplane at him and pull the trigger. Brennan mounts a 50 caliber on a fixed bracket between the rudder pedals. He runs a cable from the gun to a button on the control yoke. He paints a black cross on the windshield as a gun sight. This is insane, Cross mutters. But he keeps working. They move to the waist section. Standard armament. 2 50 caliber guns, 1 on each side. Brennan doubles them. 4 guns. 2 gunners with twin weapons each. They add guns to the radio compartment. They add extra ammunition storage. They strip out every non-essential piece of equipment to save weight. The coffee maker goes. The extra seats go. Everything that doesn't shoot or fly goes. Brennan also adds something else. Insulation. He knows they will be flying at 25,000 feet, where the temperature drops to 40 degrees below zero. Old Devil's heater has been broken for months. The metal skin will be cold enough to burn bare skin on contact. He scavenges parachute silk from damaged chutes in the supply depot. He wraps it around the gun positions, creating makeshift thermal barriers. It's not much, but it might keep his gunners from losing fingers to frostbite. By the end of 2 weeks, Old Devil bristles with firepower. 19 machine guns, more than any bomber in the Pacific Theater, more than any bomber anywhere. The plane settles lower on her landing gear under the extra weight. The nose dips forward. She looks dangerous. She looks hungry. Brennan stands back and looks at his creation. In the moonlight, Old Devil doesn't look cursed anymore. She looks like vengeance. Think she'll fly? Castellano asks. Only one way to find out. They wait until just before dawn. The sky is grey. The base is quiet. Brennan sits in the pilot's seat. Cross acts as co-pilot. Castellano is in the nose with his twin 50s. Brennan runs through the pre-flight checklist. Fuel, full. Oil pressure, good. Control surfaces responsive. He has flown 73 combat missions. This feels different. This feels personal. He advances the throttles. The 4 Wright Cyclone engines roar to life. The props spin. The airplane shudders like a hunting dog straining at the leash. Old Devil rolls forward. She is heavy, 800 pounds heavier than factory specifications. The engineers said it couldn't be done. The manual says it's impossible. Brennan doesn't care what the manual says. He pushes the throttles to take off power. The engines scream. The airplane accelerates down the dirt strip. Faster, faster. The tail lifts. The airspeed indicator climbs. 60 knots, 70, 80. The airframe groans. The extra weight fights against lift. For a moment, Brennan thinks they're not going to make it. The trees at the end of the runway are getting closer. Then engine number 3 coughs, misfires. The power drops. The airplane lurches to the left. "We're losing 3, Cross shouts. Brennan's hands move on instinct. He compensates with rudder. He adjusts the throttles. The oil pressure gauge on number 3 flickers, dropping from 60 pounds to 40, then stabilizing at 35. Pressure's marginal, Cross calls out. She's wounded, but she's running. Brennan makes a split-second calculation. The engine is damaged, probably a cracked oil line or a failing pump. It will run, but on borrowed time. They can abort the test flight, or they can accept the risk. We keep it running, it'll hold. He coaxes the dying engine. The misfire clears. Power returns, unstable, rough but enough. Old Devil claws her way into the air with 50 feet of runway to spare. They climb to 2,000 feet. Brennan levels off. He tests the controls. The airplane handles like a truck. She is heavy. She is slow, but she is stable. And Engine 3 is still running, though the oil pressure warning light glows amber on the panel. How's she feel? Cross asks. Like a flying fortress with a bad heart. Brennan banks into a gentle turn. But she'll do. Get Colonel Garrison. Tell him we need to talk. An hour later, Brennan stands in Garrison's office. The colonel sits behind his desk reading a maintenance report. He doesn't look up. You took a condemned aircraft without authorization. You modified it without approval. You test flew it without clearance. Garrison sets down the report. Give me one reason I shouldn't court-martial you right now. Because I can save lives, sir. You almost got yourself killed. That engine failure on takeoff could have crashed the plane. Old Devil has always had engine trouble. Engine 3's oil system is compromised, but she's airworthy, and she's more than that, she's a weapon. Garrison stands. He walks to the window overlooking the flight line. I read your modification report. 19 machine guns, 800 pounds overweight, slower than standard specs. You've turned a bomber into something that can't keep up with formation. I don't want to fly formation, sir. I want to fly solo reconnaissance. Solo reconnaissance is suicide. You know that. Solo reconnaissance with standard armament is suicide. With my modifications, it's possible. Brennan steps forward. Sir, you said yourself that men are dying because we can't defend against frontal attacks. I've solved that problem. Give me a mission. Let me prove it. You see, Garrison turns from the window. His face is unreadable. And if you're wrong, if your Frankenstein monster falls out of the sky, then you can honestly say, I died trying something new instead of dying the same way everyone else dies. A long silence. Outside, a flight of B-17 takes off for a morning patrol. Their engines fade into the distance. There's a mission, Garrison says quietly. Bougainville, Kahili Airfield, intelligence needs photographs for the invasion planning. High-resolution shots of the defenses, gun positions, troop concentrations, aircraft dispersal. I can do that. It's a death sentence, Brennan. You have to fly straight and level for 20 minutes over the most heavily defended target in the Solomons. No evasive action, no dodging flak, just a steady platform for the cameras. 2 crews have already turned it down. Brennan meets the colonel's eyes. I'll do it. Why? Why volunteer for suicide? Because if I don't, someone else will. And they'll do it in a standard B-17 with weak nose guns, and they'll die just like the others. At least I have a chance. Garrison walks back to his desk. He sits down heavily. He suddenly looks every one of his 52 years. You really think your modifications will make a difference? I know they will, sir. Another silence. Then Garrison opens a drawer and pulls out a file. Mission briefing is tomorrow at 0600. You fly the day after. If you survive, I'll recommend your modifications to the brass. If you don't survive, I'm putting Old Devil in the scrap heap where she belongs. Fair enough, sir. Garrison looks up. And Brennan, get yourself a full crew. I don't care if they're misfits and washouts. I don't care if every other pilot on this base has rejected them. You're going to need every gun manned when the Zeros come for you. They already are, sir. They're already with me. That night, Brennan walks through the base. The moon is full. The air is thick and hot. Tomorrow is June 15th. The day after tomorrow, he flies into hell. He finds Castellano sitting outside the barracks, cleaning his guns. The sergeant looks up as Brennan approaches. "We got the mission?" "We got it. Bougainville, June 16th, 0530 takeoff." Castellano nods slowly. He doesn't look scared. He looks ready. "How many zeros you think they'll send?" "All of them." "Good." Castellano slides a fresh belt of ammunition into his gun. "I want them to see what real firepower looks like." Brennan sits down beside him. Together they look up at the stars. Somewhere up there, tomorrow night, they will either be heroes or corpses. There is no middle ground. "Dom," Brennan says quietly, "if this goes wrong, if we don't make it back—" "It won't go wrong, Captain. You built something special. I've been in that nose. I've seen what those twin 50s can do. When the zeros come, we're going to surprise them." "I hope you're right." "I am right. You're the smartest pilot I ever met. If anyone can pull this off, it's you." They sit in silence. The base around them sleeps. But Brennan and Castellano are wide awake. Tomorrow they will climb into a machine that everyone says is cursed. They will fly into the most dangerous airspace in the Pacific. They will face an enemy that has killed hundreds of American airmen, and they will do it in an airplane that shouldn't exist. An airplane built from scrap and determination, and the absolute refusal to let good men die for bad design. Old Devil waits for them in the darkness. Her 19 guns are loaded, her engines are ready, Engine 3 is wounded, but she will fly, she will fight. She is no longer cursed. She is something else now. She is hope. And hope, Brennan knows, is the most dangerous weapon of all. The sun is not yet up when Old Devil's engines cough to life. It is 0530 hours, June 16th, 1943. The air is thick and warm. In 6 hours, it will be cold enough to kill. Brennan sits in the pilot's seat running through his final checks. His hands move with practiced efficiency. Fuel mixture rich, throttles set, magnetos on. Around him, the cockpit comes alive with the sound of engines finding their rhythm. 4 Wright Cyclones, each one 1,000 horsepower of controlled violence. Engine number 3 runs rough. The oil pressure is still marginal, 35 pounds instead of the normal 60. But it runs. Behind him, the crew settles into their positions, 9 men. Some of them are experienced, some of them are green. All of them are here because no one else wanted them. The misfits, the rejects, the ones with bad records and worse attitudes, but they are his. Castellano's voice crackles over the intercom from the nose position. "Guns hot, ammo feeds clear. Ready when you are, Captain." "Roger that." Brennan advances the throttles. Old Devil lurches forward. She is heavy. The extra guns weigh her down like chains, but she moves. The eastern sky is beginning to grey. In the distance, the jungle is a black wall. Brennan guides the bomber down the dirt runway, picking up speed. 60 knots, 70. The tail lifts. The controls go alive in his hands. At 85 knots, Old Devil claws her way into the air. They climb slowly. The overloaded bomber struggles against gravity and physics and every engineering manual that says this shouldn't work. Engine 3 coughs once but keeps running. 1,000 feet, 2,000, 5,000. Brennan banks north, toward the Solomon Islands, toward Bougainville, toward 600 miles of empty ocean and the most heavily defended airspace in the Pacific Theater. The sun breaks over the horizon. Golden light floods the cockpit. For a moment, everything is beautiful. Then they hit the cold. At 10,000 feet, the temperature starts to drop. The warm tropical air gives way to something thinner, sharper. At 15,000 feet, frost begins to form on the inside of the windows. Delicate patterns of ice spread across the plexiglass like frozen spider webs. At 20,000 feet, the cold becomes a physical presence. It seeps through the aluminum skin like water through cheesecloth. It creeps into gloves and flight suits and the spaces between ribs. It makes metal so cold that bare skin will freeze to it on contact. At 25,000 feet, the thermometer reads 40 degrees below zero. The metal gun barrels are cold enough to burn. Castellano wraps his hands in extra cloth before touching the twin 50s. Even through the fabric, he can feel the brutal cold radiating from the steel. Ice crystals form on the ammunition belts, tiny jewels of frozen moisture that crack and fall away as the belts feed through the guns. The parachute silk insulation Brennan installed helps, but not enough. The waist gunners huddle at their stations, wearing every piece of clothing they own. 3 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, scarves wrapped around their faces. Their breath comes out in thick clouds that freeze instantly into tiny droplets of ice falling like snow onto the metal floor. The youngest gunner, a kid named Harper, flexes his fingers constantly inside his gloves, fighting to maintain feeling. If he loses dexterity, he cannot shoot. And if he cannot shoot, he is dead weight. The cold is an enemy as deadly as the zeros waiting ahead. Brennan's breath fogs the windscreen. He has to keep wiping it clear with his gloved hand. The control yoke is so cold it burns through the leather of his flight gloves. He can feel his fingers going numb. In the nose compartment, Castellano positions himself behind his twin guns. The plexiglass around him offers no insulation. It's like sitting in a frozen greenhouse. His feet are blocks of ice inside his boots. He stamps them against the metal floor, trying to force circulation. "How you doing up there, Dom?" Brennan asks over the intercom. "Freezing my arse off, sir, but the guns are ready." "Stay sharp. We're crossing into their radar range in 30 minutes. The crew doesn't complain. They know what they signed up for. They huddle at their stations, flexing their fingers, stamping their feet, blowing on their hands. The insulation helps with the gun positions, but everywhere else the cold is total. Old Devil drones on through the thin air. Below them the ocean is a wrinkled blue blanket stretching to infinity. No ships, no land, just water. If they go down out here, no one will find them. They will sink 3 miles to the bottom and stay there forever. Brennan flies manually. He doesn't trust the autopilot on a modified aircraft, especially with engine 3 running rough. His right hand rests on the control yoke. His left hand manages the throttles, constantly adjusting for the uneven power output. The oil pressure on number 3 fluctuates between 30 and 40 pounds. Not good, but sustainable. At 0900 hours, the mountains of Bougainville appear on the horizon, dark green humps rising from the sea, beautiful and deadly. "Target ahead," Brennan announces. "All positions, check your guns, chamber rounds. We're entering the kill zone." Down the length of the fuselage, men jack slides and feed ammunition belts. The sound of metal on metal echoes through the airframe. 19 guns coming to life. 19 promises of violence. The cold makes everything harder. Fingers are stiff. Metal is brittle. The waist gunners struggle with frozen ammunition cans. But they get the guns ready. They are professionals. Brennan flies straight toward the island. No evasive action, no weaving. His orders are clear. Get the photographs. The invasion planners need to see the Japanese defenses. They need to know where the bunkers are, where the anti-aircraft guns are positioned, where the fighters are hidden. To get those photographs, Brennan has to fly straight and level for 20 minutes. He has to be a predictable target. He has to let the enemy get close. He is counting on his modifications to keep them alive. The radio crackles, not a friendly voice, a Japanese transmission. Someone on Bougainville has spotted them on radar. The call goes out. Brennan doesn't speak Japanese, but he knows what they're saying. Lone bomber. Easy kill. "Captain." The top turret gunner's voice is tight. "Contacts. 12 o'clock high." Brennan looks up through the windscreen. Against the deep blue of the sky he sees them. Small shapes catching the sunlight. Fighters. He counts them as they peel away from their patrol altitude and turn toward the lumbering bomber. 5, 10, 15, 17, 17, 0 fighters. Jesus Christ, someone whispers over the intercom. Brennan's hands tighten on the controls. 17. An entire squadron. This is not a random patrol. This is deliberate. The realization hits him like a fist. It's a trap. They knew we were coming. How? Castellano demands. Someone talked. Someone leaked the mission.
Brennan watches the Zeros descending. They are organizing, forming up, getting ready to strike. Doesn't matter now, what matters is staying alive. 17 against 1. Those are bad odds, Captain. Then let's change the odds. Brennan keys the intercom. All positions, listen up. We're about to prove something. We're about to show these bastards what happens when you attack a B-17 that shoots back. Hold your fire until they're close. Make every round count.
And whatever happens, we complete the mission. We get those photographs. Understood? One by one, the voices come back. Affirmative, Roger. Yes, sir. They are scared. Brennan can hear it in their voices, but they are ready. The Zeros split into groups. 6 of them climb higher, positioning for a dive attack. 5 break left, 6 break right. They are going to hit Old Devil from multiple angles simultaneously. Classic tactics. Overwhelm the defenses, kill the bomber fast. But they don't know what they're diving into. The lead element comes first. 6 Zeros in a loose formation dropping from 12 o'clock high. They are fast, they are graceful. The Mitsubishi A6M is the finest fighter aircraft in the world. Light, agile, deadly. Against a standard B-17, this attack would be devastating. The single nose gun would fire uselessly while the Zeros tore the cockpit apart with 20mm cannons. But Old Devil is not standard. Dom, Brennan says quietly. You see them? I see them. Castellano's voice is steady. He is crouched behind his twin 50 caliber guns in the nose compartment. The cold makes his fingers stiff, but his thumbs rest firmly on the butterfly triggers. He is watching the Zeros get bigger in the plexiglass. Range? Wait for it. The lead Zero is 800 yards out, then 600. The Japanese pilot can see the B-17 now. He can see the nose. He is expecting one weak gun. He is expecting an easy kill. 400 yards. Brennan can see the muzzle flashes from the Zero's wing cannons. Tracers zip past the cockpit. 20mm shells explode in the air around them. Black puffs of smoke. Now! Brennan shouts. He presses the button on his control yoke. The fixed 50 caliber between his feet roars to life. The recoil shakes the entire airframe. At the same instant, Castellano squeezes his triggers. Twin 50 calibers erupt. Heavy, armor-piercing, incendiary rounds tear through the air. 3 streams of fire converge on the lead Zero. The effect is catastrophic. The Japanese fighter doesn't just take damage, it disintegrates. The heavy rounds smash into the engine, the cockpit, the wing roots. Metal tears, fuel ignites, the Zero becomes a ball of orange fire and debris. The explosion is so violent that the other Zeros break formation, scattering like startled birds. Splash one! Castellano's voice is electric. Holy shit, it works! Captain, your design works! But there is no time to celebrate. The remaining 16 Zeros are recovering from their shock. They have just learned that this is not a standard bomber. This is something else, something dangerous. They adapt. 5 Zeros swing wide to attack from the beam. 6 more circle around to hit the tail. The remaining 5 regroup for another frontal assault. They are going to come from every direction at once. They are going to overwhelm the guns with sheer numbers. Brennan flies straight and level. The camera operator in the back is calling out bearings. The mission requires steady flight. No evasion. Just hold the course and let the cameras do their work. The sky erupts. Zeros attack from 3, 9, and 6 o'clock simultaneously. The bomber's guns open up. The sound is deafening. 19 50 caliber machine guns firing at once. The airframe shudders. Spent brass casings rain onto the floor. The smell of cordite fills the cabin, thick and acrid even in the freezing air. Tracers crisscross the sky like a deadly light show. The waist gunners are pouring fire into the Zeros attacking from the sides. Their hands are numb from the cold, but they hold the triggers down. The top turret gunner is tracking the high divers. The tail gunner faces 6 Zeros alone and holds his ground. A Zero comes in from 3 o'clock, low and fast. The waist gunner catches it with a long burst. The fighter's canopy shatters. It rolls inverted and spirals toward the ocean. Another Zero dives from above. The top turret gunner leads it perfectly. 50 caliber rounds walk up the fighter's fuselage. The tail section tears away. The Zero tumbles out of control. But the Japanese are professionals. They press the attack. A 20mm shell punches through the wing. Another explodes against the vertical stabilizer. Shrapnel tears through the thin aluminum skin. Then the hydraulic system fails. Warning lights flash on Brennan's instrument panel, hydraulic pressure dropping. The system is bleeding out from battle damage. Without hydraulics, they have no brakes, no flaps. Landing will be nearly impossible. But Brennan built redundancy into his modifications, a backup hydraulic system cobbled together from salvaged parts. It kicks in automatically, pressure stabilizes. Backup systems holding. Brennan calls out, "Keep shooting." Castellano's twin guns never stop. He is firing in controlled bursts, leading the targets, compensating for the bomber's movement. His fingers are so cold he can barely feel them, but he keeps shooting. He is in his element. This is what he was born to do. A Zero lines up for a head-on pass, point-blank range. Castellano and the Zero pilot see each other through their gun sights. For a frozen moment, they are looking into each other's eyes. Castellano fires first. The Zero's engine explodes. The fighter cartwheels past the bomber so close that Brennan can see the pilot slumped in the cockpit. "4 down," someone shouts. "We got 4." But the cost is mounting. A 20mm shell explodes in the nose compartment. The blast is blinding. Shrapnel fills the air like a swarm of metal hornets. Castellano is thrown backward. He hits the deck hard. Blood, so much blood. He has been hit in the stomach and the neck. The stomach wound is bad. The neck wound is worse. Blood pours over his flight suit, hot and red and too much. It steams in the freezing air. Brennan feels the impact through the airframe. Dom, report." No answer. "Somebody get to the nose. Castellano's hit." The radio operator scrambles forward, sliding on the icy floor. He sees Castellano lying in a spreading pool of blood. The wounds are catastrophic. This is not survivable. "Captain," "Get him to the radio room." "Stop the bleeding!" But Castellano pushes the radio operator away. His hands are slick with blood. His vision is fading. He can feel his life leaking out through the holes in his body. The cold makes everything worse. The blood freezes on his flight suit, but through the shattered plexiglass, he sees another Zero lining up. The Japanese pilot thinks the nose guns are silenced. He is coming in slow, taking his time, going for the kill shot on the cockpit. Castellano doesn't think, he acts. He drags himself back to his guns. It takes everything he has. His body is shutting down. His hands are numb from cold and blood loss. But he gets to the guns. He grabs the handles. The frozen metal burns his skin. He pulls himself up using the gun mount. Blood runs down his arms. He spits red onto the floor. He can barely see. The world is going grey at the edges, but he can see the Zero. He lines up the sights. The Japanese pilot realizes too late what is happening. He sees the twin barrels swinging toward him. He tries to break off. Castellano holds the triggers down. The twin 50 calibers roar one last time. The tracers lash out across the sky. They catch the Zero in the wing root. The wing snaps. The fighter rolls violently and plunges toward the sea. Castellano collapses over his guns. He is done. The radio operator reaches him, but there is nothing to be done. Castellano's eyes are open. They are looking at nothing. He's gone, Captain. Castellano's gone. Brennan feels the words like a physical blow. Dom, his friend, his bombardier, the man who believed in the modifications when no one else did. Dead in the freezing nose compartment. The grief is a wave trying to drown him, but he cannot let it. Not now. Not here. At the same moment, something slams into Brennan's leg. A bullet. A .50 caliber round fired by a Zero's rear gunner. It punches through the fuselage and shatters Brennan's left femur. The pain is instantaneous and absolute. White-hot. Blinding. His leg becomes a pillar of fire. Another bullet tears through his right wrist. The control yoke is suddenly slippery with blood. The instrument panel explodes. Glass shards spray into Brennan's face. He can taste blood. Everything is blood. Old Devil lurches. The nose drops. They are falling. Brennan's vision tunnels. The edges go dark. The pain is trying to pull him under. The cold makes it worse. His blood freezes on the controls. Every instinct screams at him to let go, to give up, to let the darkness take him. But he cannot, not yet. He grabs the control yoke with his right hand. The shattered wrist screams in protest. He doesn't care. He pulls back. He uses his right leg on the rudder pedals because his left leg is useless. Old Devil levels out. Brennan checks his watch. The crystal is cracked, but it still works. They have been over the target for 9 minutes. 11 more to go. 11 more minutes of straight and level flight while the Zeros tear them apart. 11 more minutes while Dom lies dead in the nose and Brennan bleeds out in the cockpit. He could turn back now. He could dive for the clouds, save himself, save the crew, cut his losses. But if he does that, the mission fails. The photographs aren't taken. The invasion planners are blind. Marines will die on the beaches because Brennan turned back. And Dom will have died for nothing. Brennan makes his choice. He grips the yoke tighter. Blood runs down his arm, freezing in the brutal cold. He flies straight. "Camera operator," he says. His voice is steady, despite the pain. "How much more do you need?" 11 minutes, sir. Maybe 10 if we're lucky." "You'll get it. Everyone else, keep shooting. We're not done yet." The Zeros cannot believe it. The bomber is full of holes. It is trailing smoke. The pilot must be dead or dying, yet it just keeps flying straight. Keeps completing its mission. They throw everything at it. They attack from above and below. They fire until their ammunition is exhausted. They put round after round into the battered airframe. But Old Devil refuses to die. The extra armor that Brennan installed stops the bullets. The redundant systems keep the engines running. The 19 guns keep the Zeros at bay. 5 more Zeros fall, 1 to the waist guns, 2 to the top turret, 1 to the tail gunner who is wounded but still fighting, 1 to a lucky shot from the radio operator who has never fired a gun in combat before. 9 Zeros total, 9 kills for a single bomber. It is a record that will stand for the rest of the war. The remaining 8 Zeros are low on fuel and ammunition. They make one last pass. Their cannons flash. Shells punch through the wings, the tail, the fuselage, but they cannot stop the mission. The film counter in the camera clicks to 100%. The photographs are complete. "Got it!" the camera operator shouts. "But, Captain, we got everything." Brennan doesn't celebrate. He doesn't have the energy. He just keys the intercom. "All positions, hold on." He pushes the control yoke forward. Old Devil's nose drops. The bomber falls out of the sky like a wounded eagle. They plunge from 25,000 feet. The altimeter spins backward. 20,000, 15,000, 10,000. The Zeros follow for a few thousand feet, firing parting shots. But they are almost out of fuel. They cannot chase the bomber all the way home. One by one, they break off. They turn back toward Bougainville, leaving the smoking ruin of the B-17 alone over the empty ocean. Silence. After 40 minutes of constant noise, the silence is shocking. No engines screaming, no guns firing, just the steady drone of Old Devil's propellers and the wind rushing past the bullet holes. As they descend, the air grows warmer. The brutal cold begins to ease. At 10,000 feet, the frost on the windows starts to melt. At 5,000 feet, the crew can finally feel their fingers again. Brennan levels out. He tries to assess the damage. It is bad. The hydraulic system is gone. The oxygen system is destroyed. The radio is shot to pieces. The compass is broken. He has no way to call for help, no way to navigate except by the sun, and he is bleeding badly. His flight suit is soaked. He can feel the blood pooling in his boot. His left leg is useless. His right wrist is a mess. He is light-headed. The adrenaline is wearing off and shock is setting in. He calls out to the crew, "Sound off! Who's alive back there?" One by one, the voices come back. Wounded, hurt, but alive. All of them except Dom. They have survived the impossible. But they are 600 miles from home. That is 4 hours of flying. 4 hours that Brennan has to stay conscious. 4 hours that he has to keep his hands on the controls and his feet on the pedals while his body shuts down. He focuses on the horizon. He picks a cloud and flies toward it. Then another cloud, then another. He breaks the impossible into small pieces, 1 minute at a time. One cloud at a time. Behind him, in the nose, Castellano lies draped over his guns, the guns that saved them, the guns that proved Brennan's theory was right. Brennan thinks about his friend, about the nights they spent welding guns into the airframe, about the calculations on the chalkboard, about the moment when Dom shook his hand and said, "I'll help you build it." He thinks about the choice Dom made, dying, bleeding out, still crawling back to the guns, still shooting, still fighting. That is the standard. That is what it means to finish the mission. Brennan flies on through the pain, through the exhaustion, through the blood loss and the shock and the cold knowledge that he might not make it. But he has to try, because Dom died buying him time, and you don't waste time that costs that much. The sun climbs higher, the ocean stretches endlessly below. Old Devil limps south toward home, toward safety, toward the end of the longest flight of Brennan's life. He has proven his theory. The modifications work. The Frankenstein bomber is not a death trap, it is a weapon. But the price of proof is written in blood across the cockpit floor. And Brennan knows that some prices can never be repaid. Hour 1. Brennan's hands are locked on the control yoke. His right hand grips so tight the knuckles are white. His left hand is useless. The shattered wrist has swollen to twice its normal size. He can barely feel his fingers. His left leg is worse. The femur is broken. Bone fragments grind against each other with every movement. The pain comes in waves. White-hot spikes that make his vision blur and his breath catch. He has lost a lot of blood, maybe half of what his body holds. The flight suit is saturated. The rudder pedals are slick. When he looks down, he can see the pooling red on the cockpit floor. He is going to die if he doesn't get help soon. But help is 400 miles away. The crew tries to assist. The radio operator climbs forward with the medical kit. He cuts away Brennan's flight suit and stares at the leg wound. It is bad. The kind of bad that usually means amputation. He packs it with sulfur powder and wraps it tight. "Can you give me morphine?" Brennan asks. "Sir, morphine will make you drowsy. You need to fly." "Then just stop the bleeding." The radio operator does what he can. It is not much. The wounds need a hospital. They need surgeons and blood transfusions and prayers. A field dressing and a tight bandage are not going to be enough, but it buys time. Brennan flies on. Old Devil drones through the sky at 5,000 feet. She is slow. The damaged engines are running rough. Number 3 is still leaking oil, the pressure gauge hovering just above the red line. The hydraulics are gone, the control cables are frayed. With every minute, the airplane is falling apart a little more. But she keeps flying. Brennan keeps her level. He trims the controls to compensate for the battle damage. The nose wants to drop because of the weight of the guns. He adjusts the elevator trim. The airplane pulls to the left because engine 3 is producing less power. He compensates with rudder. It is a constant fight. Every second requires active correction. If he lets go, if he relaxes even for a moment, Old Devil will roll over and dive into the ocean, so he doesn't let go. Hour 2, the pain medication is wearing off. The sulfur powder is not enough. Infection is setting in. Brennan can feel it. The wounds are hot. The flesh around them is swelling. His vision starts to fade at the edges. Grey creeps in from the sides. His brain is not getting enough oxygen, not enough blood. His body is shutting down non-essential systems to keep the heart and lungs working. He fights the darkness. He focuses on small tasks. Check the fuel gauge, adjust the throttles, scan the horizon for landmarks, count to 60. Do it again. The crew talks to him over the intercom. They tell stories, jokes, anything to keep him engaged. The tail gunner talks about his farm in Iowa. The waist gunner describes his girlfriend in San Diego. The top turret gunner recites baseball statistics from memory. Brennan listens. He responds when he can. Mostly, he just flies. In the nose compartment, Castellano's body lies where it fell. The crew cannot move him. The nose is too damaged, too much broken glass and twisted metal. They cover him with a blanket and leave him at his post. Brennan tries not to think about it, but every time he looks forward through the windscreen, he can see the blanket. He knows what is underneath. His friend, his bombardier, the man who believed. The grief is enormous. It sits in his chest like a stone. But he cannot let it overwhelm him. Not yet. Later, after they land, after they survive. If they survive. Hour 3, engine number 3 starts to fail. The oil pressure drops to 0. The temperature climbs into the red. White smoke streams from the cowling. Brennan has a choice. Shut down the engine and fly on 3, or risk it and hope the engine doesn't catch fire. He makes the call. He feathers the propeller. The engine stops. Now they are flying on 3 engines instead of 4. Old Devil slows down. The airspeed drops. They are barely maintaining altitude. Brennan does the math in his head. 3 engines, reduced speed, increased fuel consumption. They might not make it. The fuel might run out 50 miles from base. If that happens, they ditch in the ocean. No radio, no rescue. They will sink and drown, and no one will ever know where. But there is nothing he can do about it. He cannot make the engines more efficient. He cannot create fuel from nothing. All he can do is fly the most direct route possible and hope. So he flies, and he hopes. The sun climbs higher. The heat inside the cockpit becomes oppressive. At low altitude, the temperature is over 100 degrees. Brennan is soaked with sweat and blood. His mouth is dry. His lips are cracked. He has not had water in 6 hours. The radio operator brings him a canteen. Brennan drinks. The water is warm and tastes like metal. It is the best thing he has ever tasted. "How much farther?" the radio operator asks. Brennan checks his calculations. 200 miles, maybe less. "You can make it, sir." "We'll see." Hour 4. The coast of New Guinea appears on the horizon. It is a thin green line against the blue. It is the most beautiful thing Brennan has ever seen. But seeing land and reaching land are 2 different things. The fuel gauges are reading empty. All 4 tanks are running on fumes. Brennan has maybe 10 minutes of flight time left, maybe less. He aims for the nearest airstrip. It is not their home base. It is Dobadura. A forward strip carved out of the jungle, dirt runway, no tower, no facilities. But it has a runway, and that is all that matters. "All positions," Brennan says. "We're going in. Brace for hard landing." The crew scrambles. They secure loose equipment. They strap themselves into their seats. They grip whatever they can hold. Brennan lines up on final approach. The runway is ahead, a strip of brown dirt cut through green jungle. It looks impossibly small. No hydraulics means no brakes, no flaps. He will be landing at full speed with no way to stop. He does the math. Landing speed for a B-17 is normally 90 knots. With flaps, with brakes, Old Devil will hit the ground at 120 knots, 40 miles per hour faster than she should. And once she touches down, she will keep rolling until she hits something or runs out of runway. Brennan cuts the remaining engines to idle. Old Devil sinks toward the earth. The trees rush up. He can see individual branches, individual leaves. He pulls back on the yoke with his shattered wrist. The pain is excruciating. He screams, but he pulls. The nose lifts. The wheels touch dirt. The first bounce is violent. The landing gear compresses and rebounds. Old Devil leaps back into the air. The second bounce is worse. The right main gear nearly collapses. Metal groans. Rivets pop. The third time she stays down. Old Devil rolls down the dirt runway at 100 knots. No brakes, just friction and prayer. She rolls past the operations shack, past the parked plane, past the fuel dump. The end of the runway is coming up fast. Beyond it, a cliff, a drop into the jungle. Brennan stands on the right rudder. He turns the airplane. She skids. The tires scream. The airframe shudders. Old Devil slides off the runway into the grass. She plows through the dirt, slowing, slower. 50 feet from the cliff edge, she stops. The sudden silence is profound. Brennan sits in the cockpit. He cannot move. His hands are frozen to the control yoke. His body is locked in position. He has flown for 6 hours, 4 of them bleeding, 4 of them dying by inches. But he is down. They are down. He hears sirens, ambulances, people shouting, running feet. The world outside the cockpit becomes chaos. But inside, Brennan is quiet. He leans his head back against the seat. He closes his eyes. He breathes. The mission is over. They came to him with questions first, then with wonder, then with something approaching awe. The medics pulled Brennan from the cockpit. They loaded him onto a stretcher. He looked down at his leg and saw bone, white and splintered. The medics covered it quickly. One of them shook his head. "We need to amputate," the doctor said in the field hospital. "No," Brennan's voice was weak but firm. "Captain, the damage is too severe. The bone is shattered. You have fragments in the muscle. Infection has already started. I need that leg to fly. You're not taking it." The doctor looked at him for a long moment. Then he nodded. "We'll try, but you need to understand, this is going to hurt, and it might not work." "Do it." They did 11 surgeries over the next 2 weeks. They removed bone fragments. They debrided infected tissue. They set the femur with metal pins. They rebuilt the wrist joint. Brennan endured it all without complaint. Between surgeries, he wrote. He filled notebooks with technical specifications, diagrams, calculations. A complete report on the modifications to Old Devil. What worked, what didn't, what should be changed. He wrote about the battle, the 17 zeros, the kills, the damage. He wrote about the hydraulic backup system that saved them, about the extra armor that stopped the bullets, about the 19 guns that turned a bomber into a battleship. He wrote about Castellano. While Brennan was recovering, the ground crews were examining Old Devil. What they found changed everything. The chief engineer walked around the battered airplane 3 times before he spoke. He counted the damage. He measured the holes. He checked the structural members. Then he called for Colonel Garrison. "Sir, you need to see this." Garrison stood beneath the wing and looked up. The engineer pointed to the main spar, the massive beam of metal that holds the wing to the fuselage. The most critical structural component of the entire airplane. It was severed. 70% of the spar had been cut through by cannon fire. "By every law of physics," the engineer said quietly, "this wing should have failed. At 25,000 feet, with combat maneuvering, with the stress loads from the guns firing, this spar should have snapped, the wing should have torn off, the airplane should have crashed. But it didn't, Garrison said. No, sir, it didn't, and I can only think of one reason why. The engineer pulled out a clipboard. Captain Brennan's weight redistribution, his armor placement. When he added the guns, he reinforced the wing roots, and not intentionally, he was just trying to balance the weight. But the reinforcements he added, they compensated for the missing spar. He accidentally built redundancy into the structure. Garrison looked at the damaged airplane, at the 187 bullet holes, at the 5 cannon shell impacts, at the wing that should have fallen off but didn't. He didn't just modify a bomber, Garrison said, he redesigned it. They counted everything. 187 bullet holes, 5 cannon shell impacts, hydraulic system destroyed, oxygen system gone, radio obliterated, compass shattered, 1 engine failed, main wing spar severed, 9 fighters shot down, record for a single bomber mission, 20 minutes over target, perfect photographs, 0 mission failure rate, 1 crew member killed in action, 8 crew members wounded but alive, 1 pilot who flew 600 miles with catastrophic injuries and no hydraulics, 1 airplane that should not exist. The photographs were developed immediately. Intelligence officers spread them across tables and studied every detail. The Japanese defenses on Bougainville, the gun positions, the bunkers, the aircraft dispersal areas, everything the invasion planners needed to see. 3 months later, in September 1943, a team of Boeing engineers arrived at the base in New Guinea. Brennan was still in recovery. He could walk now, with a limp. The leg had been saved, barely. It would never be the same, but it was his. The lead engineer was a man named Peterson, 50 years old, silver hair, serious eyes. He had flown out from Seattle specifically to meet Brennan. They sat in the hospital mess hall. Peterson spread out blueprints on the table. "Captain Brennan, I want to show you something." The blueprints showed a new aircraft, the B-17G, the latest model, still on the drawing board, but it had something different, something new. Mounted beneath the nose was a chin turret, 2 50-caliber machine guns in a remote-controlled position, designed to defend against frontal attacks. Brennan stared at the drawings. "We've received field reports from several crews," Peterson said. "All of them describe the same problem. Nose vulnerability, frontal attacks that our gunners couldn't stop. Your report was the most detailed. More importantly, your combat data proved it works. You took on 17 fighters and survived. You killed 9 of them. The brass can't ignore results like that." "When does production start?" "We're already building the prototype. First deliveries to operational squadrons in January. Every B-17 coming off the line will have this turret." Peterson paused. "We're calling it the Brennan configuration, unofficially, of course. Call it the Castellano configuration. He's the one who died proving it works." Peterson nodded. "Understood." In November 1943, they held the medal ceremony. Brennan stood in his dress uniform. The leg brace was hidden beneath the trousers. He leaned on a cane. His right wrist was still in a cast. Colonel Garrison read the citation. "For conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty." The Medal of Honor was placed around Brennan's neck. Castellano received the same honor, posthumously. His family accepted it. His mother held the medal and wept. Brennan stood at attention while the band played, while the cameras flashed, while generals shook his hand and told him he was a hero. But he didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a man who had made a machine work, a man who had proven a theory, a man who had lost his best friend in the process. After the ceremony, Garrison found Brennan alone. "I was wrong about you, Captain. I thought you were just another hothead who didn't respect authority, but you respected something more important. You respected the truth, and you had the courage to prove it." Brennan shook his hand. You gave me the chance to prove it, sir. That took courage, too.
Garrison smiled, the first real smile Brennan had ever seen on the colonel's face. Next time someone tells me something can't be done, I'm going to remember Old Devil, and I'm going to ask them, did you do the math? Later that day, Brennan found Castellano's mother. He saved my life, Brennan said. He was dying and he still fought. He still protected us. I want you to know that. He's the reason any of us made it home. She took his hand. He wrote me a letter before the mission.
He said you were going to change everything. He said you were going to make the bombers safer. Was he right? Brennan thought about the B-17G, about the chin turrets being installed on every new bomber, about the thousands of crews who would fly with better defenses because of what Old Devil proved. Yes, ma'am, he was right. The invasion of Bougainville happened in November. The Marines landed on the beaches with perfect intelligence. They knew where every bunker was, every gun emplacement, every strong point. Casualties were 60% lower than projected. 6,000 men came home who would have died without those photographs. 6,000 lives. The price of those lives was written in the blood on Old Devil's cockpit floor. But the investment paid dividends. Of the 8 wounded crew members who survived the mission, all of them made it through the war. The tail gunner returned to his farm in Iowa and raised corn and soybeans for the next 40 years. The waist gunner married his girlfriend in San Diego 3 months after coming home. The radio operator used his GI Bill to become a doctor, fulfilling the dream that made him want to help people in the first place. The top turret gunner became an engineer. The other waist gunner opened a hardware store. The navigator taught high school mathematics. Harper, the youngest, went to college and became a teacher. They stayed in touch with Brennan. They met every June 16th for the rest of their lives. They never talked much about the mission. They didn't need to. They had lived it together. That was enough. June 16th, 1944. Exactly 1 year after the mission. Brennan walked through the boneyard. He walked slowly. The leg would never be completely healed. But he could walk. He could fly. He had returned to limited duty 3 months earlier. At the far end of the boneyard, Old Devil sat in the tall grass. They had tried to repair her, but the damage was too severe. The airframe was structurally compromised. The wing spar could not be replaced. She would never fly again. So they brought her here, to die with dignity. Brennan climbed the ladder into the waist section. The interior was empty now. All the guns had been removed, all the equipment stripped. Just an aluminum shell. He walked forward to the cockpit. He sat in the pilot's seat one more time. The leather was still cracked. The bloodstains were still visible on the floor. He ran his hand over the control yoke. Outside he could hear engines. He looked up. A formation of B-17Gs flew overhead. 12 bombers, every one of them had the chin turret beneath the nose. Brennan watched them fly past. He thought about the crews inside. Young men flying into combat, but flying with better protection than the crews before them, flying with the modifications that Old Devil proved. "We did it, Dom," Brennan said quietly. "They're all flying with your guns now, every one of them. You're protecting them even now." The formation disappeared into the distance. The sound of their engines faded. Brennan climbed down from Old Devil for the last time. He stood in the grass and looked at the battered airplane. She would be scrapped soon, cut up and melted down. Her aluminum would be turned into new planes. Her steel would be turned into new weapons. She would be recycled and reborn, but her legacy would remain. Old Devil had proven that individual initiative could overcome institutional inertia, that field modifications could outperform factory designs, that a misfit pilot in a rejected airplane could accomplish what no one thought possible. She had proven that courage and engineering could save lives. Brennan walked away from the boneyard. He didn't look back. He didn't need to. Old Devil was dead. But her children were flying. 8,680 B-17G bombers were produced between 1943 and 1945. Every single one had the chin turret. Every single one was safer because of the lesson learned over Bougainville. Thousands of airmen came home because of those turrets. Thousands of mothers received their sons back. Thousands of wives welcomed their husbands home. The math was simple. One plane, one mission, one sacrifice, infinite return. Brennan flew 27 more missions before the war ended. He survived them all. He came home to a country that called him a hero. He accepted the praise with quiet dignity. But he never took credit for the design. He always said it was Castellano's work, Castellano's vision, Castellano's sacrifice. In his later years, when people asked him about the mission, he would tell them this: I just did the math. I just built what needed to be built. Dom was the one who proved it worked. He was the one who paid the price. Every gunner who came home after June 16, 1943, came home because a man named Dominic Castellano crawled back to his guns when he was already dead. That's the story. That's the only story that matters. Old Devil was scrapped in August 1944. Her aluminum was melted down. Her serial number was struck from the records. But in the history books, in the museum displays, in the memories of the men who flew and the families who waited, she lived on. The Frankenstein bomber, the cursed plane that became a legend, the machine that should not have worked but did. She proved that sometimes the broken things fight the hardest, and sometimes broken things change the world.